So I'll just start off. Tell us about the votehousing.ca campaign. Who started it? Why? What's the whole purpose of getting housing and homelessness on the political agenda this election?
Well, we started Vote Housing simply because it was, the Canada's housing crisis and our homelessness crisis were created by policy. We know that when the federal government withdrew from housing investment and in the 80s and 90s, that began the crisis that we're seeing today. And of course, for Indigenous people in particular, it's also a product of, the echoes and legacy of residential schools, colonization, missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And these are all things that federal leadership is critical for us, and that's why we started Vote Housing.
Something I found interesting, a lot of people think, oh, well, how much would it cost if we provide housing for everybody? And I thought it was interesting when you said, it's a problem that's far cheaper to solve than it is to keep going, how it is. Can you boil that down for us, how we understand the kind of the math behind that?
Well, we know that homelessness, just homelessness, not the housing need, but homelessness costs the Canadian economy over $7 billion every year to just ignore it. And those are costs for, policing and shelters and all the programs that get associated with it. It's actually far cheaper if we were to invest in the housing that's required, and it creates a permanent solution. It actually makes little or no sense to allow homelessness to continue, even if you set aside kind of the justice and moral reasons for solving the problem.
But I mean, if this makes economical sense, why are we even having the conversation? Why hasn't this been done?
I think in elections and in politics, governments will focus on the things where they can get the most votes. And so again, when we looked at housing need and homelessness in Canada, one of the things we realized is 36% of Canadians know somebody who's experienced homelessness or have experienced it themselves. That's a huge number of people. 1.5 million Canadians have experienced homelessness. 1.7 million households are in core housing need. And if these people were all able to get out and vote and sort of make this a political issue, then we'd get traction. And we're starting to see that in the campaign today.
You've said that homelessness has been ended in some areas, and the problem has been dramatically reduced in others. Can you tell us where these places are, what's worked, and how you could take that's worked at a local level and make it be a national program?
For sure. Well, Medicine Hat, Alberta has ended chronic homelessness. London, Ontario has ended homelessness for veterans. The city of Edmonton, city of 1 million plus folks, has reduced overall homelessness 43% in the last several years. That proves that homelessness is a solvable problem. The key thing they've done is focus on ending it. But they were able to bring together the 3 levels of government, focus on housing, and do some other key measures that we know are effective. But the big thing, is what we really need federal leadership and that federal investment in housing. Provinces and cities just don't have that kind of money themselves.
Do you have a dollar figure that you're thinking would be helpful, or I guess even the bare minimum of a federal commitment to this?
Yeah, well, we think it's about $5 billion a year would be the cost. And again, it depends on how you spend it, but a lot of it has to be focused on, providing rent supports, that deep subsidy, new affordable housing, developing supportive housing, and importantly, an urban Indigenous housing strategy that is by Indigenous people and for Indigenous people. I'm
curious to know a little bit more about that strategy.
Yeah, well, one of the things I think we recognize is that 87% or so of Indigenous folks live in urban centers in rural communities, or basically not on First Nations or Métis settlements. And so when they don't live there, they don't always get the benefit of the housing investment that goes directly through First Nation, Métis, and Inuit national organizations. So there has to be some funding dedicated for those people that are living in the cities, rural or remote or northern areas that can't access that housing on their home nation or territory. So that's a critical priority, because we see Indigenous people dramatically overrepresented in homelessness. Place like Winnipeg, 70% of the homeless population is Indigenous. Edmonton is also significantly high, upwards of about 50%.
You are putting this to the parties during this election. Tell us about the votehousing.ca. You guys are doing a debate. Tell us when and where people can follow that.
Yeah, we're planning a housing debate at some point next week. We're just confirming all the leaders, confirming all of the participants, hoping that it'll be just before the leaders debate. But we're just going to nail that down. We'll be releasing our platform in some detail today or early tomorrow. If folks are interested, go to votehousing.ca and see the details of what we're calling on all the parties to do.
Love it. And we will watch that website too for nailed down time and date for that debate among the parties about homelessness and housing. Thank you so much, Tim, for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you.